Hello, friends. Welcome to the introduction to the Morons of Madness podcast. I'm your friendly neighborhood, moron friendly, actually straight up malicious game master, dungeon keeper. We'll stick with just Dave. I am the one who will be running our little gang of 5 through their paces on Chaosium's Horror on the Orient Express, created by Lynn Willis for the Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game. For those of you fresh to the tabletop phenomena, the basic gist of this podcast will be me setting up some horrifying scenario. The guys will roll some dice, and if they roll well enough, they might just survive to deal with the inevitable next horrifying scenario. For those of you not so fresh to the actual play podcast stuff, this is our first podcast, so please be gentle. Honestly, we're just a group of friends who decided to record ourselves playing ridiculousness after a few years of keeping it to ourselves. Listener numbers be damned, we will publish until the stars are right. A couple of things to note before you dive into episode 1. First and foremost, each of our 5 characters has a small episode all to themselves. Each episode will feature a few words from the player, a scene from their character's past, and a small scene with a mysterious stranger where they will be given an item to aid in their adventure. I'll bring those up and explain them in a little bit at the end of this, so you can choose to tune in for some technical jargon, or you can tune out and assume we know what we're doing. Danger in every choice is the name of the game here, folks. Get used to it. I'd advise listening to each character episode before getting into episode 1, just to get used to the names and the voices we hope you'll be listening to for years to come. Secondly, there was an unintentionally unrecorded prologue to this adventure, kind of a dress rehearsal for the show where our friends, a term I use so very loosely, got to know each other. In the game, after being mysteriously invited to an auction for occult items in Vienna, Austria, our heroes investigated a gruesome murder and a missing bronze head statue. After stumbling upon some ghouls working for a madman looking to resurrect his dead wife, our beloved morons Scoobied the whole situation, driving the ghouls away and having the madman arrested. Typical Saturday. The event really didn't endear them to one another, which is why in the first episode there are some snarky comments. For those interested, we ran the auction scenario from the Cthulhu casebook. Fun was had by all, arguably. We recorded the first few episodes before we started publishing, so we have a bit of a backlog. The first episode is a little slow. Everybody is kind of getting their role-playing feet under them with these relatively new characters, and there's a lot of information dumped on them. As a final side note, each character has been awarded a single Mark of Destiny token. They can cash these in once to save their own lives, regardless of what the story dictates. Call of Cthulhu demands bodies, but a podcast demands each character you're introduced to lasts at least 2 episodes. Now, each of our adventurers were provided a special item during their personal episode. If game minutia bores you, now's the time to start listening to the show proper. If the description of game mechanics is your bread and butter, well, here's some sourdough and a stick of Land O'Lakes finest. Vernon Withercorn's Amulet of the Storied Man. To add or subtract a D8, D12, or D20 to any roll he makes, Vernon can feed the amulet a memory of his wife or daughter. The strength of the dice is decided by the importance of the memory. Once the memory is consumed, it is completely forgotten. Overuse can lead to the loss of the 2 women he loves within his own mind. Charles Highlands' Revenge of the Frenzied Man. An ornate dagger. Every time it damages someone, he rolls a D2. The dagger steals that many magic points from the enemy, storing it. At choice moments, those magic points can be released as lightning damage. It can only store 10 points. Once it absorbs 11, however, the knife automatically releases everything. Both Charles and his target take the full effect of 11 points of damage. To channel it otherwise costs him 2 magic points. Robert Frobisher's Sands of the Finite. Robert may re-roll for any failed reaction or save. A single point of health is lost in the process. If he dies in that moment, or as a direct result of the re-roll, he is instead flung into the future by a decade for every use of the sands. For every decade he travels, he will lose 4 sanity points. Annie Fredrickson's Ring of the Still Mind. For every spell cast, Annie can reduce the sanity cost by a D4. However, every roll made immediately after is accompanied by a luck roll. The first luck roll that is failed that corresponding roll is an immediate critical fail regardless of outcome. Heinrich von Mueller's Healing of the Void. A flask that is filled with an endless, dark, pungent blue liquid. For every swig, heals 1d4. The first swig costs Heinrich 1 point from his lowest base stat. The second takes 2 from his highest. The third takes 3 from his second lowest. The fourth takes from his second highest. So on and so forth, etc., etc., ad infinitum. And with that, dear listeners, we appreciate you giving us your time. We are just a group of morons that like to have fun in the madness of role-playing games. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter with links in the description. Please, come back as we will be uploading every other week our adventures. Adios, auf Wiedersehen, adieu, and good night.